Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are, and welcome to my Miami Grand Prix race review. Not a classic by any stretch of the imagination, despite what we were promised, but let's get into it. Since the Azerbaijan Grand Prix was only a week before the Miami race, there was not much news to report on in the 3 or 4 days between the events. However, the rules regarding people running across the pit lane, the centre of attention after Esteban Ocon's hairy near miss on the last lap in Baku last week, was clarified, and this week, thankfully, there was no similar incident. In addition, the FIA shortened the DRS zone on the back straight. There was also a host of special helmet designs this week to align with the race organised attempts to make it a spectacle on the Formula 1 calendar. Half the entire grid switched up their helmets for this weekend, and I, alongside every other Formula 1 YouTuber, have a penchant for ranking. In 10th I have Kevin Magnussen's helmet. I just don't get it. Next up I have Max's helmet. Whilst I like it, it's just too similar to his usual helmet for me to really like it. It's like if you took his helmet and then inverted the colours. In 8th, I've gone for Pierre Gasly. I like the Miami colours, but he's far from the only one to do the same thing, and his logo being plastered all over the place, while cool, is just a bit random. Carlos' helmet is cool, and the transition from Miami to Ferrari in the middle is clean, but it's quite bland overall. Esteban Ocon is next up. Cool Miami related details, and the flag on the top is nice. This is probably similar to the helmet I'd have if I raced, but that's because I've got the originality of the guy who named Toro Rosso. Homeboy Sargent. Same sort of thing as Esti, but the section bits are really cool. 4th, I have Charles. I could really see Joe Hamilton wearing a shirt like that, and that's always a good sign. The first podium of his career begs for Nico, as his palm tree inspired helmet was cool anyway, but the fact that it matches what he wore around the paddock is just perfect. In 2nd, I have Lando Norris, just because of this photo alone. Besides this, it's a cool concept similar to his basketball of last year. And in 1st place, Haas's Miami-inspired race suits were on display as early as FP1, as Nico Hülkenberg found the wall and red flagged the session, which was topped by the 2 Mercedes cars. It was Kevin Magnussen's Haas's turn to crash in FP2, but he just about avoided the barriers at the chicane. Charles Leclerc, however, was not so lucky, sliding off the track and into the wall. George Russell's time to top the sheets in FP1 would have had him last in FP2, as the rubber being dropped on the track, combined with the cool temperatures of the late afternoon, led to Verstappen putting up a time over 2 seconds quicker than Russell. Saturday practice was a similar story to FP2, with everyone hanging around the 128s and 29s. However, there were 3 drivers to get out of those 2 seconds. Sargent with a 130 in FP2, Leclerc with a 127.9 in FP3, and Verstappen with a 127.9 in FP2, and a crazy 127.5 in FP3. That's a whole 4/10 faster than anyone else in both FP2 and FP3. Q1 was crazy close, not only in terms of the traffic, but also in terms of the timing. Ignoring Verstappen's 127.3, 3/10 up the road from everyone else, the field spread was under a second. The closeness of the field allowed one of the Aston Martins, Lance Stroll, to be knocked out in Q1, and one of the best cars on the grid would be starting from P18 come Sunday. Q2 brought shock as Lewis Hamilton was knocked out, but the real drama was saved for Q3. The man who topped Q1 and Q2, Max Verstappen, ran wide and abandoned his banker lap, meaning that he only had the time to put in 1 lap at the end of qualifying. This is obviously not suggested in case anything goes wrong. For example, someone spins off the circuit at turn 7, bringing out the red flag, but that would never happen. Hang on, what's that? Yellow flags? Is that a Ferrari off? At turn 7? Is that a red flag? Meaning no one can set a final lap? Meaning that Verstappen and Bottas can't set a lap at all? You're goddamn right it is. Max Verstappen needs banning from Formula 1. Honestly, the fact that he started 9th and before even hitting the 10 lap mark, he was up to 4th on slower tyres is absolutely ridiculous. Lap 15 was when the pack released him to chase after Sergio Perez, and with him struggling on worn hards, it was destined to only be a matter of time before Verstappen was passed. Perez gave a good fight and a good defence, but the fight ended on lap 48. Lance Stroll, starting from a poor 18th on the grid, fought back on the alternate strategy, staying out on the hard tyres for 42 laps, the 2nd longest on the grid. He ended up in 12th place, including a nice overtake on Albon, which was watched and appreciated by teammate Alonso, watching the TV screens from P3 after not seeing anyone for the last half of the race. By self-admission, the man who's got 15 points in every race this season claimed, "At the beginning of the year, a podium was amazing. Now after 4 races we want more, at least a 2nd place, but the 2 Red Bulls are unbreakable and super fast." Lewis Hamilton fought back well from his lowly position on the grid, overcutting the majority of them and, with fresher mediums, overtaking his way up to 6th place. George Russell, however, was put on the alternate strategy, starting on the mediums and moving on to the hard. Showing raw pace to get Carlos Sainz off of his back, it may be a concern for Ferrari, but it was a promising weekend from both Mercedes. Ferrari's poor start to the season didn't get very much better in Miami, as the cars showed the pace very on par with a position in the constructors this season. However, team principal Vasseur will be happy with the overall performance, as they laid low, didn't make any race-ruining mistakes, and the only time that they were highlighted was when Sainz got a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. McLaren's horror start to the season continued, as both cars started on softs, the only drivers to start on such tyres. Both pitted in the first 5 laps for hards. Piastri had brake software issues, Norris had De Vries issues, and they came home to finish 19th and 17th. Alpine continued to meet their target of best of the rest, with Gasly in 8th and Ocon in 9th behind the top 4 teams, with Stroll out of the point. Gasly started 5th on the hards, changed early, sat in 6th while everyone on the medium behind caught up to him, and in the last 10 laps dropped to 8th behind Leclerc and Hamilton. Magnussen, benefiting from Leclerc's incident on Saturday, started 4th but quickly fell down the order and finished just about in the points in 10th. Hulkenberg had initial pace on the hards but struggled on the medium and ended up 15th. Alfa Romeo, or Alfa Romero as their Twitter admin called them, continued their invisible start to the season, finishing 13th and 16th. Neither driver did anything notable apart from Bottas having a good start, jumping up from 10th to 8th ahead of Verstappen and Ocon. In fact, they were so irrelevant that I couldn't even find one stock image online of their 2023 car at Miami, and so had to include the 2022 car in the video.
He might be small in stature, but he's a mighty racer. It's the fearless Japanese F1 superstar, Yuki Tsunoda!
Yuki Tsunoda continued his impressive start to the season, finishing 11th again, a position he is quickly getting used to. A less impressive but still regular occurrence was Nick De Vries being off the pace again, hitting the back of Lando Norris at turn 1 and finishing last of all the drivers without issues on P18, with Piastri behind having brake issues and Sargent needing a front wing change early on. Logan Sargent had a collision early on that was not shown on broadcast, but ended in needing a front wing change, and he never recovered. Albon, however, after a strong qualifying coming in 11th, set out arguably too long on the mediums and fell back to 14th. Overall, it wasn't one of the worst Grand Prix that I've ever bore witness to, that was Belgium 2021, but it also wasn't a classic thanks to the dominance of the Red Bulls. It's a shame because if they weren't so dominant, we'd have a great season on our hands. Hamilton up there, Alonso up there, Leclerc's been up there, and I hope that they can close up as the season draws on. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again next time.